friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming at you with something a little bit different. Basically what this is a discussion with a couple of my friends. We went to university together. You're going to hear from Megan and Carter, and I will leave their links down below so you can check them out. I'm pretty biased, but I think they're pretty cool people. Basically, I invited them to have a discussion with me about J.K. Rowling and what has gone on with J.K. Rowling being a TERF and what we do with Harry Potter going forward, considering what J.K. Rowling has done. I want to preface this by saying that my channel is not a place for transphobia, and if you have any kind of transphobic comment, it'll probably get deleted. This is not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about transphobia in media and how that's harmful for trans people or questioning people, and also a discussion about the Harry Potter fandom. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, where do you go from here? What do you do? We also talk about a few other figures in media that have shown that they have transphobic ways. Basically, it's just like a full discussion about transphobia, J.K. Rowling, and Harry Potter in general. I am also going to leave some resources down below that you can check out, some organizations that you can donate to, etc. Black Lives Matter, support Black lives, be anti-racist, educate yourself, and please wear a mask.
Does it sound ASMR-y?
Do I sound ASMR-y?
Okay.
You do. You really do. Is this ASMR-y?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here, I'll drink some water.
You ready?
Screw TERFs, we hate them all. Fuck J.K. Rowling, Daniel Radcliffe wrote Harry Potter.
At the age of 8, Daniel Radcliffe was declared a prodigy.
Where do we want to start?
Where do you want to start?
Originally, this was gonna be like me talking about like problematic authors writing like nostalgic content because of Twilight. But J.K. Rowling's been a TERF for like a fucking long time, and all of a sudden people suddenly know, and like I don't understand why people didn't realize that before.
I was thinking about it, Carter, because I literally remember we were in third year, so that was 2 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
But like you texting me the tweets, like the TERFy tweets she had liked. So like that was like the first I remember seeing explicitly her tweeting or like liking something.
Yeah.
But there was probably shit before, but like the fact that we even saw stuff at least 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was what was so weird. I think it's truly because it was very like it was casual. It was never really her stating this is what I believe. And I think people kind of probably saw that and were just like, okay, well, we can excuse this because she's not saying it. It's just like liking, following TERFs. Like, I don't know, maybe
she just likes tweets from popular known TERFs. It's like, no big deal.
Like, yes, she liked a tweet that said trans people should die, but let's just ignore this. Like, I don't know, maybe that was.
But she didn't say it.
Because she did say it.
Well, that's like, okay, if we want to bring up like another popular person that like continually does problematic shit and people keep supporting him, Jeffree Star.
Ugh, I can't even.
Like,
I'm so behind on everything. I don't know what the fuck is happening. I just know he's just maybe a Nazi.
He's just like super racist.
Did you guys read her?
I could not bring myself to read it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, so this is on me. I didn't.
Okay.
Did you?
Okay, I didn't either. I read some of it. I wasn't gonna give her the satisfaction of like trans people, like people like me, like reading it. Like I was like, fuck that. Like just
don't
I
give
blocked
it the time
her,
of day.
like, you know, whatever. But then I was like curious because I saw this tweet that was like, and maybe you guys saw it too, that a trans guy was saying that in the open letter she uses a very old TERF ideology of like trans men are actually autistic girls.
What the fuck?
And so when I read this tweet, yeah, I had that same reaction. When I read that tweet, I was like, that's a thing? Like, you always hear TERF say, like, trans men are just lesbians, like, confused lesbians. But apparently,
yeah,
there's, like, another thing of, like, they're autistic girls. And so I had to read it at that
So
point.
now, not only are you don't like trans people, period, but now you're coming at autistic people?
Oh my god.
Who are you,
just,
Gwyneth
like,
Paltrow?
completely, just, like, so removed from, like, autism and what autism is.
Like, as
like,
if
so removed from
it. Like, that, how does that even... like
the idea that you say that, and autism is such, like, a crazy spectrum, right? Also, if that were the case, wouldn't all autistic girls then be, like, say they were trans? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the way she, like, would word stuff, and I can like go, I screenshotted some of the particular things that I, at the beginning, because I didn't finish reading it, but the stuff that I did read, like, I did screenshot some of the very ridiculous statements she was making. And the way she would frame it, she would be like, oh, there's actually quite, like, there's a study that says this, and like one of the things was a high number of, like, trans guys are, like, autistic or something like that. Like, I can pull it up to, like, make sure I'm saying the right thing. But
is there a source?
That's how she would frame it.
Is this study peer reviewed?
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. She's taking, like, quote unquote, these statistics and these opinions of like, quote unquote, like, professionals, but they're also transphobic TERF. Yeah.
Transphobic
That's
people
like
are going to write
white...
articles that are transphobic.
Yeah. Like, look at all the fucking discourse around by, like, white racist doctors about black people and black bodies. Like, of course they're going to say there's some correlation and try and say that it's, like, somehow returning back to the whole idea of being trans as a mental health condition or some bullshit.
Yeah, how it's all connected to, like, body dysmorphia and all that. Yeah. People are like, no, it's an illness. It's not, like, you just need to be cured of your illness.
And I found some of the screenshots if you'd like me to read some shits she said.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
But one of the things, so this was kind of more at the beginning. She was quoting, saying, people will call us transphobic. They'll say I hate trans people. What's next? They'll say you've got fleas. Speaking as a biological woman, a lot of people in positions of power really need to grow a pair. Brackets, which is doubtless literally impossible, according to the kind of people who argue that clownfish prove humans aren't a dimorphic species. What? So, like, that already, right? I was like, she sets the tone by, like, saying I'm a biological woman. Sex is like, our biological sex is under attack because of trans politics, if you will, how she words it, I guess. Her whole thing, and people who support her, their whole quote unquote defense is that, like, they say it as like it's a trans, like, movement, like, or whatever, is attacking their science and, like, the idea that biological sex is, like, attacking that quote unquote idea, which isn't even true. Like, even in science, like, biologists and people who study DNA and chromosomes, and I don't know that shit, but, like, they know that shit, and they're like, that's not even true. Like, our ideas are just, like, very generalized. There's so many interlapping and complex things that go into our sex and all those things.
And the thing is too, that saying that, like, when people say only two sexes exist, or, like, two sexes, there's two sexes, there's not. Like, you're completely erasing intersex people, and you're also perpetuating the idea that if you're born intersex, that you need, like, a sex surgery to, like, quote unquote correct it. Which can be, like, super traumatizing to intersex people when they grow up and they find out what happened to them. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, like, people who use those arguments, like, I don't even think they know that intersex people exist.
They don't.
Like, that's not even in their radar.
They have no idea.
Like, J.K. Rowling's whole open letter talks, essentially, she takes trans identity, and many transphobes and TERFs do, they take it as, like, a literal personal attack on their identity. And in her case, her womanhood is under attack. Like, that is That is literally what it is. Like, you know.
I hate it so much because, like, there's a reason why we call them TERFs and we equate these women with feminists because they think that they're feminist. They think that they're doing good for women everywhere when usually, first of all, they're usually white and they completely erase identities of women, non-binary people. They don't believe in intersectionality. Like, they don't think that you're more oppressed because you're black or whatever. Like, how insecure can you be that you think your womanhood is under attack? Like, what does...
That's always the one argument I never get. Like, someone else's life is somehow attacking your identity. Like, what the
yeah.
What are you smoking?
The way I always see it is, like, it's people who, like, they're so afraid of something that isn't the status quo, you know? So for her argument against trans women, right?
Yeah.
It's that, and use the, you know, transphobic kind of wording. It's just because this is how she's saying it. She's like, you know, like, these, like, people can, men specifically, she's saying men can just say that they're women because, and without surgery or hormones, and they can just get, like the certificate, like the birth certificate that says they're a woman. Because trans men, she's like, well, they're confused autistic women. Like, so there's two different arguments going where she's saying now more than ever, trans men are getting access to hormones, to top surgery, to etc. And then she's saying, like, you know, and now there's like all these cases of detransitioning, and that argument, when people make that argument, I get so upset. But anyway, then she goes on to say, and you know, and it's linked to not only autism, but self-harm and depression. And then she goes to say, God, if I had been exposed to, oh yeah, trust me, this is like out of the witch's mouth herself. Like, she says, if I in the 80s was exposed to the trans agenda, if you will, I think I would have transitioned because I was depressed and self-harming, and I would have done it because it's so appealing and all this stuff.
No, it's not.
Are you kidding me?
Also, like, her saying that, like, it's so easy to transition now and to change your gender on your birth certificate. It's not easy to change your gender on your birth certificate. It's not easy to transition. Like, it's hard to even change your name. Like,
it's hard to change your name, baby, and everything else. Yeah, it's like, I wish I didn't read it, but like a part of me is glad, because seeing some of the shit she was saying was like she's insane. Like, she's a legit TERF. Like, and she tries to say like, oh, I'm not. I'm just a woman. Like, you know, whatever. Sorry, it's just very violent. Like, it's violent transphobia, and it was insane, because I was like, this woman, like, she just fucking like let out a bomb, and she didn't let anyone reply to it. Like, she did that on purpose because she didn't want people to criticize her, and it was insane. And it's, I don't know.
And people agree. The crazy part is like before this, we were talking about like bookstores pulling her books, and like people are like, oh, trans people, a lot of trans people agree with her, and I'm like, show me.
Literally, show me who. Ooh, and this is Blair White. Like, what the fuck?
There are, and that's only because there's a problem already within the trans community of people like specifically Blair White, people like Calvin Guerra, these trans meds who are like perpetuating those ideologies because they want to be a part of the cis conversation. Like, them perpetuating like transphobia is letting them into those discussions and being told by people who are so unbelievably transphobic. People like J.K. Rowling, who are like, well, I know a trans woman. Like, she said this in her thing. She's like, I know a trans woman who is a self-described transsexual who agrees that these new transgender people are all confused and that it's like a disease and that it's a mental illness. Like, and so by doing that, those people are validated by the most transphobic people, and then transphobic people are validated because, oh, look, the freaks that I hate are, look, they agree with me. You all have a disease. So it's really fucked up because it's frustrating because I don't think those people are valid. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked into Blair White. If I see her, it's on site. Like, actually, like, she has caused so much shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad.
I do know about, like, and I think you've told me about this is how I know, is that, like, there's this community of trans people who are like, you're not trans until you've, like, quote unquote fully transitioned, like, medically, basically. Comes from this idea that, like, biological sex and all that. Yeah. But it's just
pleasing the sissies.
Yeah.
It's truly pleasing the cis, like, gender, like, transphobic kind of communities, for sure. Like, especially like people like Ben Shapiro.
I can't even look at his face.
I know.
I hate him, that little mouse man. But him and Blair White had a debate, and he uses that argument of like, well, biology is sex is like male, female, that's it. And he started to go into like how pronouns are inherent to biological sex, and how if we say all these things are fake, like you're denouncing. And it was really like, it's all these people saying things that they're not true.
Yeah.
But
they're making up their own shit.
Yeah.
They're making up their own shit. Like, it's all because, like, you can argue whatever for science, but ideas of pronouns are socially constructed ideas. Like, nothing is inherent to, like, that isn't, like, sorry. And the point I was trying to make was that Blair White, like, she just lets those people say shit like that. And they have these debates. And she's like, oh, like, we can have a conversation and we can be. I'm like, well, fuck that. Like, who cares? Like, look at what this guy's saying. He's saying nothing. People like that are saying nothing but their own dumb opinions that aren't smart. And she's just like, oh, yeah, I agree with you. Why?
Also, too, like you were saying earlier, Carter, the whole thing about, like, the detransitioning stuff. Mm-hmm. The thing I find so interesting about that, I saw a tweet one time, and it made me think in my noggin about how, I don't know why the response to that is, oh, someone, explored their gender identity and came to the conclusion that they were cis, rather than, oh, all trans people aren't actually trans. Like, I don't get why that's the conclusion, rather than, oh, this was someone that thought they might not be cis, and so they explored that idea, and then they came to the conclusion that they were cis. Like, why are we also, like, by doing that too, it's so weird because it's discouraging people from even if, like, even the whole time you're like, I am cis, the idea of getting people to explore the idea that the construction of gender, like, I don't know why we would look down on that and why people criticize that and then use it to attack trans people.
Sexuality is very fluid, and so if sexuality can be fluid, why can't gender be fluid?
It absolutely is. It's especially when and transitioning doesn't always have to be medical. Some people can and do define it as, and I would agree with that. It starts as just even starting to dress differently, or any level of beginning to explore your gender is a way of transitioning and exploring, and it should be a thing where it's like, you know what, if you do want to do this, you can, and you can stop at any time, and that's okay. Like, we have the technology and the science to be able to do those things, and we should be able to do them in a safe way and in an accepting way, that if you decide, okay, you try it, you whatever, you want to stop, and that's okay. And they frame it as these irreversible kinds of things, when in reality
they're not at all.
One day be like, oh, I'm trans, I need to get bottom surgery tomorrow. Like, that is not what happened.
No.
And I think that's that's what they use as a fear-mongering argument. They're like, they have these irreversible, like,
effects
things, and in some ways, yes, like testosterone and estrogen, like, especially testosterone is very strong in the sense of, like, your voice will drop, and that won't necessarily go away. Not that it matters, but the point is like, that's that argument is like, you're gonna get a bottom surgery, you're gonna regret it, and then you're gonna have mutilated your body. Like, that's the the issue, and it's just not true. Like, that's not what happens. It takes years to get surgery. Like, it took me like, I think it was 3 years to get top surgery. I'm assuming for other people who don't even have health insurance, it takes even longer.
Yeah.
That's just Canada, and that's just because, you know, I happen to...
In Ontario specifically.
Not even, you know, another and again, like, there's so many other things that, you know, people like that don't even think about. Like, non-white people aren't necessarily probably even as fast as I did, you know what I mean? Like, those other factors probably come into play as well.
Kind of going off your point is that there's these doctors that are like, you can't transition, it'll have dangerous effects on your body, here are the studies, and it's like, no, those studies are done by transphobic doctors. It's transphobic doctors that are speaking out about these things, and it's so dangerous for not only like impressionable youth, but also it's dangerous when it comes to people like J.K. Rowling when they want to back up what they're saying. But there are also, like, I follow a couple of queer doctors on Twitter. We need more doctors like that in the media, like, speaking out about it to say, hey, no, it's okay.
I saw this one tweet that was, I think a trans woman was saying, like, it was about J.K. Rowling and just that those arguments of people who keep wanting to portray this idea that, you know, men are just like predators and pedophiles are just like pretending to be. And it was this tweet that was like, what man would pretend to be trans to be put on estrogen that would make them have like erectile dysfunction? Like, not, you know, it changes your body, and it changes like that organ a lot, just on both ends, like, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, like, literally, like, you know, like, it was framed so perfectly that I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
also, this might be a hot take, but like, why would cis men, like you said, take estrogen to prey on women when they can already do it without having any repercussions
and get away with it? Yeah, exactly, and get away with it.
Like, there are,
they do, like, all the time.
Look at the state in Canada and the US. Men are already getting away with it. Why would they need to alter their body to somehow be able to get into a space to prey on women? They're already doing it. Like, it's already happening.
The series of murders that happened in Toronto's queer village. Bruce McArthur.
Brian, whatever. Fuck that guy.
Brian was killing queer people and no one cared. People said to the police, hey, this is happening. Well, and the police were like, maybe. We'll think about it.
It's funny you say that because that police chief, like the Toronto one who's resigning, I can't remember his name right now, but my dad watches with Stephen Palkin, I think his name is. It's this report show, but he was asking him about it, and he's like, do you regret saying that you didn't think these murders were linked? Do you regret saying that considering it was? And he's like, I was just saying, which I do get, but you should have followed up. He was like, at the time, that's what we did believe, that they weren't linked. And so that's why I said it. It's like, okay, well then you should have done.
That's what you believe because you didn't ever consider anything else.
It wasn't investigated enough to have evidence to see the links. You know what I mean? Like, there hadn't been enough of an investigation. But it also makes me wonder remember, Carter, when it first started happening, there were because Bruce McArthur targeted men, but there were those 2 women that were killed, and like nothing has come of that, and they were killed in really similar ways. Like, this is very off topic, but I'm like,
no, I was gonna bring it up too. The Tess Ritchie one, the one who she died beside Cruz the weekend that me and AJ had gone that weekend, that was really like crazy and stuff. So actually my coworker was telling me that she knew Tess Ritchie, did get caught, and he did get charged. But I think like this trial, I think, is still going, and I think he was trying to plead like it was an accident or something, but
like manslaughter.
They didn't even look into it, and her mother found her, which is just ridiculous. But then there was the trans woman who was killed, and the police still haven't, nothing's come up of that, and the only reason why Tess Ritchie was probably cared at all about and that was already like nothing, but it was because, you know, she was a cis woman.
Yeah.
So and she was white, and the trans woman who died, like, she was also a sex worker. So it's just,
compounded,
it's bad.
right?
It's really shit. It's I don't think anything came of what happened with that, which is really sad.
The Bruce McArthur thing got a lot more attention just because serial killers unfortunately tend to.
Yeah.
But the fact that at the time there was like people online were theorizing that the men that were killed as well as the two women were all connected. The fact that Bruce McArthur got so much attention and neither the one woman that the trial is ongoing, I've seen nothing about it.
Yeah, not at all.
And who even the fuck knows like what's going on with that?
I don't know if you guys saw this, but her pen name under the Cuckoo's Calling.
I was just about to ask this.
So Robert Galbraith is.
I didn't look it up because everyone was saying not to look it up.
Well, basically, Robert Galbraith. What's his full? Oh, Robert Galbraith Heath is basically the man that pioneered conversion therapy.
That's what that meant?
Yeah.
Because I went in preparation for us talking about this. I just went to see what she had been tweeting about lately, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, like, I knew that she had like written books under a pen name, so that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
did she like come out and say that it was like? I think it's too much of a coincidence for it not to be, but also it's like, I don't know.
There
weird.
is an article that I read about how, like, when she first came up with that pen name and the Cuckoo's Calling first came out, about, like, how she chose the name. Right. And she, like, explains how she chose it, about how, like, Robert is, like, a conjunction of her grandmother's names. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she basically said, and then Galbraith. I remembered hearing that somewhere, but I don't remember where, and I just liked the name. And so I'm like, is it a
She's
coincidence?
probably reading some anti-trans discourse,
right?
Truly, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think everything because she's read other texts, like she's read TERF kind of text and ideology. I don't doubt for a second that that's why.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was truly like a combination of her like whatever people's names, but then it also aligned with the doctor. So it's just like, let's go. You know what I mean? So that it was both. I think it was you that I saw retweet it, Carter, but there's like a super duper transphobic scene in one of her books under the pen name of Robert Galbraith. And it's like, people are like, oh, I can't believe like we should have picked up on the fact that she was a TERF because this, so I'm like, it, my mind right now with like the arrows and the map is like, it all links up.
I think,
because isn't it like they're not investigating, they're, what's the word? Why am I forgetting it? Interrogating a trans woman, and they're like, it's just like the whole scene is just super duper gross.
There's also, I forget, oh my god, I wish I could remember where I like heard or saw or read it, but basically someone was explaining how like in, I forget which Harry Potter book, Megan, you'll have to let me know.
This is unfortunately where I can help.
Yes. Hermione takes Polyjuice Potion to look like Harry.
Yes.
And
that'll be Deathly Hallows.
And yes, Deathly Hallows. The narrator and all the characters around her say Hermione, say she, and while she looks like Harry Potter. So J.K. Rowling is acknowledging, like, with that you can look like one thing, but you can be another thing. So, like, and like, how does an author write that kind of scene and then, like, come around and be like, well, biological women, or with the tweet about people who menstruate, and she was like, oh, I thought there used to be a word for that, wasn't it? Like, women or something like that. That fucking tweet. Oh my god.
In that scene, it's not just Hermione. Like, Fleur also takes Polyjuice Potion to become Harry. So it's like, it's...
what we're talking about. Aren't there multiple times where they drink the potion.
They make the Polyjuice Potion in Chamber of Secrets in the girls' bathroom.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And there's a whole scene where Percy threatens to write to Molly if he sees Ron going in there again.
Yeah, and people were saying how like it was always kind of there, like her that kind of belief, as much as it's contradictory when you think about those scenes and how, because the staircase would know.
Yes.
The staircase.
I know what you're talking about now.
Mm-hmm. Explain the scene, Megan.
Because as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, fuck, you mean, I think it's in either Goblet or Order of the Phoenix. My apologies. It's where Ron and Harry go up to the girls' dormitory because they want to go get Hermione to go do something. And the staircase, they just essentially collapse. So it becomes a slide and they can't get up. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what the fuck? Hermione can come up to our dormitory. Blah, blah, blah. And then Hermione slides down and is like, oh, who tried to go up the staircase? Or it's like Lavender comes down or something, and it's like, who tried to go up the staircase? Like, oh, they did.
It was always there for her. She secretly like was putting those ideas like into her universe, and as contradictory as when you think about it those ways, where you're like, well, if they know that Hermione's identity is that she's a woman, it's Hermione, but she's in another body, like that is contradictory to those ideas, but yeah, it was interesting because I was like, it was there. I remember those scenes, and
it's stupid, like you said, Carter. It's like very seeped in because the fact that it doesn't do that if like girls try to go up to the boys' dormitory. Yeah. So it's the whole idea of like men invading women's spaces.
Yeah, she was like trickling it in, like that's what it was, because and in her open letter she talks about her experience being abused and how she wants women's spaces, and those things are valid. However, there's that it's wrong because trans women aren't men. So it's like it's such a loop of like, how do you argue with someone like that? And I think you can't. Honestly, like, she's gonna never change her opinion. People like that just don't. Imagine all the people and the kids whose parents agree with her, who are still supporting her, letting the kids read her stories and maybe even telling them the same ideology.
The thing with that I think too is also going to be hard, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I don't think a lot of people are as tuned in to book-related internet things. Maybe a bit more J.K. Rowling, just because of how big her platform is, and obviously, like, Harry Potter in terms of scope has been different than anything else. But I feel like a ton of people, like my parents, if I hadn't told my parents, they wouldn't have known anything that was going on.
Not at all.
Right? So I feel like
the news doesn't
be a lot
that.
of there's going to be a lot of people that buy it that won't know what's going on. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that'll be interesting to see how that pans out in the next few years or so.
Yeah. I don't think Harry Potter is like experiencing a decline, but I do think that it is going to be
now it will be.
Yeah. I do think it is going to become a book that resonated with our, like, millennials, like our generation. Like, there are so many other like fantastic book series coming out with like Rick Riordan. It's still writing books, still writing characters in that world. He owns an imprint now where he amplifies diverse voices, writing their own mythologies, and kids are still actively buying and reading those. And bookstores still have like a very wide array of and a very large stock of Harry Potter books. But in my personal experience, like as a bookseller, is people buy Rick Riordan more than they're buying J.K. Rowling. And if they are buying J.K. Rowling, it's because of the nostalgia. They're older. Yeah. They're buying it for their kids because they want their kids to read it. Harry Potter has really affected our generation. Especially like someone like you, Megan, where you read the books like almost as they came out, and you found like a safe space in those books. And now that the author has come out about this, it's like, well, I guess we're not going to Harry Potter world anytime soon. Like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
I think it also depends too, just because I sell way more Harry Potter than I sell Percy. Fair. I don't mean recommendations. I usually recommend.
Oh, like selling in general.
Yeah, selling in general. Like, I usually recommend Percy or, like, Rick Riordan Presents over Harry Potter, because even if I were, most kids have already read it. That's usually the first thing they've read. But a lot of kids still haven't read Percy Jackson, and it's my life's mission to make everyone read Rick Riordan, especially Magnus Chase. Everyone out there, read Magnus Chase, please. It's so good. And the Kane Chronicles. Fuckers, you folk fucker. Like, just people coming in, like, I sell way more Harry Potter than I do.
Yeah.
Like Rick Riordan. Like, all ages, like kids coming in, getting it, like reading it for the first time, adults coming in to get like the special editions, like
the illustrated,
all that shit.
People are going to continue to come in and buy those illustrated editions as they come out because they don't know. Like, if you don't have a Twitter account, how would you know?
Well, I was going to ask you guys, like, what you think in terms of, like, rereading them, like, buying fan-made stuff. Like, you know what I mean?
I think that, like I said, like, people... Like, I saw a comment on a post on Instagram somewhere that was like, I'm trans and J.K. Rowling can pull Harry Potter out of my cold, dead hands. Like, I won't let her do this to a series that I love. And so I think that's okay to find, like, a safe place in reading the books. I think it's okay to keep reading the books. But I think, like, spending that extra money to, like, buy a new set and, like, all, like, if you are going to do that, like, buy secondhand, then none of the money goes to her. So I do think it's okay to read the books. And, like, that's also coming from someone, like, obviously I'm very obsessed with Twilight still. And I know that Stephenie Meyer is, like, kind of an asshat. And, like, she commodified an entire indigenous culture and did them dirty, and they're still looking to, like, relocate some of their schools and, like, looking for donations and stuff. And, like, I did pre-order Midnight Sun. So, am I being a hypocrite?
This had been back in 2012, 2010, like, whenever Twilight came out, like, I would have been losing my mind. But, no, I think it's, like, for me, like, because obviously, like, Harry Potter for me wasn't as didn't mean as much as it meant to you, Meg. But like, it was a part of my childhood where I loved them, and I really liked the story itself and everything. And I think that those ideas can exist together. Like, like what you were saying. Like, I think it's fair that people want something that was good like that. Because it is not overtly transphobic. Obviously, that scene in particular, like, when you realize the bigger picture that, oh, yes, she's transphobic, that scene makes sense. Whereas, like, if you're a kid, that's not what you're going to think. It's like acknowledging that she is a piece of shit is important. And I think the problem is, at the end of the day, that if you support it, you will be actively supporting her. And I think it's hard to navigate, like, what is supporting her and what isn't. Like, if like what you were saying, like, if you want to buy a new one, buy it secondhand, because
at this point,
buying new books because there's, like, a new edition, as much as I get that, obviously, but with the situation, like, we shouldn't. And my thing as well is just, she's not gonna, like, lose her career over this. And that's what's
not at all. People are, like we said, people are still gonna buy it. Kids are still going to read it.
She's already made enough money off of it already to live the rest of her life more comfortably than 99% of people on this earth. So, like, by not buying it, you're fine. People are still going to go to the Wizarding World. The Fantastic Beasts movies are still going to come out. Most people are still going to see them.
I feel like it's kind of like, not that it's pointless to not support her, because I think, I think morally, like, I won't, like, as much as I may like choose one day to reread them, because at the end of the day, she is making so much money that, like, one person deciding, like, oh, I'm just gonna buy, like, it's not gonna matter. Like, there has to be a collective agreement that, like, everyone has to, like, be like, fuck this woman, like, and I don't think that'll, I don't think it'll ever happen.
I'm not gonna buy any of the new stuff that comes out. Like, I'm not gonna, obviously, but. And I don't want to reread them right now, because even if I tried to reread them, I was actually in the middle of rereading them right now. Like, I was about to read Half-Blood Prince, and I was like, I can't read this right now, because even just seeing it and knowing that she wrote it right now, I can't disassociate the two. It's gonna piss me off, and I'm just gonna be mad. There's such a big part of my, like, it's a comfort thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like, when all this COVID shit first started happening, I was like, I'm kind of in the mood to reread Harry Potter. I'm like, why do I want to reread it? Like, why? It made me, like, it was a comfort thing. Also, not to be, like, really emo. But some of like my favorite Harry Potter memories are from when I was older, like when we would watch it at the house and stuff.
Same with Twilight.
So, like, please don't buy her books.
Yeah, and I get it, because like when I think about trying to reread the Raven Boys, I'm just like, I fucking hate Maggie Stiefvater right now, so that I can't even touch them. But obviously Harry Potter.
Should we expose Maggie Stiefvater while we're at it?
Oh God, I can't even.
I don't want her to come and yell at me again. I still remember that I was 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tori. Let's go.
If you already have the books, like no one's gonna be like, so you can't read them, and I think it's unfair to be like you can never look at them again. Yeah, there's a lot of authors who are just disgusting, horrible people. Like, I mean,
Stephen King,
Tolkien, this like C.S. Lewis, like they were all Christian like Bible thumpers that did all kinds of bad things in their stories and perpetuated horrible ideas, and people still study them, and I think it's hard because she's alive and she's actively saying it now, and obviously there's that level as well.
Like Stephen King. Stephen King is a horrible person. People still read his books. Like, he's
the conundrum.
He is the conundrum.
It's weird because, like, occasionally he'll speak up about stuff. And we're like, yeah, Stephen King. And then sometimes he, like, perpetuates pedophiles. And it's like...
Yeah.
So where...
Well, he wrote that fucking scene. Hate to break it to all y'all, but...
Like,
he wrote that.
Yeah. No, exactly.
That ruined the book. Up until then, it was fine. Literally. Everything was fine.
I asked this question. Do you think bookstores should continue to carry Harry Potter?
I think if Indigo actually meant what they said, they would have pulled the book.
Yeah.
I think it was a what's the word?
It was performative.
Like, it's just to save face. There's so many texts that exist that, that are bad. So I think I
wonder if any other like big bookstore chain has said anything about it. Like Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, like all those like big chains and other places. Because I think I've never worked at an indie bookstore, but I wonder what it's like for an indie bookstore. Because if say you own your own bookstore and you're like, Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, we're not going to carry popular authors' books. What does that do to your sales? Like, if you're experiencing a certain number of sales from Stephen King, from J.K. Rowling, your very livelihood could rely on selling those books, and so then you can't pull them.
That's the thing. It might be a matter of, for some like indie bookstores, it could be, or used bookstores even, it could be a matter of livelihood, right? So like I don't know what the answer is for that. I'm not a business owner. I have a wee brain, and so I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to me to talk to someone like that, like an indie book, because as much as I agree, like I'm like that is an interesting point to be made. I do know indie bookstores that only sell specific kinds of books, and I think there is a market for books that aren't necessarily popular. Like if you go to an indie bookstore, like for example, there's Glad Day.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, they don't sell Harry Potter. It's not queer.
A queer, not only fiction but nonfiction, and they seem to do fine. Obviously, they have a cafe kind of sit down area, so they must make money there, and they probably make a lot of money. Pride. I think
they serve alcohol as well, so that probably makes.
They also serve alcohol, so I think like
it's also expensive for them though.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think pissed me off the most about the timing of all of this, and I saw a lot of people say it, and I'm sure y'all agree, was that she had to go out and say this bullshit. One, well, everything's going on with Black Lives Matter, and there are much more relevant things than her TERF discourse. But also during Pride.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about specifically for Black Lives Matter, and thinking about the only Black character that she actually describes as Black in the book, Dean. And then I realized in Deathly Hallows, it's such a minor thing, but in Deathly Hallows, the conversation is overheard while he's camping with people that are also running away from the ministry because he doesn't know his blood status because his father is not in his life.
Jesus Christ. I don't even know
my God.
And I sat there and I was thinking about that. I was like, oh yeah, there's Dean. I was like, Dean doesn't like know because his mom, like he's like, yeah, my mom's a muggle, but my dad isn't in my life, so like I don't know what my blood status is, so that's why I'm running, because if I'm, you know, a muggle born, then but I'm just like the only black character, and you use the black stereotype of the absent
yeah.
like there's just so much in that, and it was such a short thing, and then I realized it, and I was like, because I saw a lot of people justly talking about Cho Chang and Parvati and Padma Patel, but no one really bringing that up. Watch, now I'm gonna misremember it, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting.
No, that is interesting. That's insane.
Yeah, I never noticed that.
Like, it's emphasized again and again, like how much throughout the books, how Harry will him and Harry will turn to each other for certain stuff because he has like a football poster above his bed and they don't move, and like it weirds out Seamus and Ron, and you know, like there's just this sort of somewhat of a disconnect, like very much how he's like muggle born or grew up in the muggle world, and so did Harry, and that's sort of emphasized again and again, and then it's revealed in Deathly Hallows through an overheard conversation how like Dean isn't actually sure of his blood status.
When you're a kid reading it, you're not gonna think. I mean, maybe if you're a really smart kid, but I know, like me, a little white kid, I would not have thought anything of it. Like, even the Cho Chang thing, I didn't, you know, obviously you don't think anything of it because we're just kind of ignorant to those kinds of things. So it's just, whether that makes it okay, I don't, like, for kids to read, I mean, like, I don't know.
It should have been a hint to all of us that when people started cannoning, whatever, Hermione is black, and J.K. Rowling was like, I never said that she wasn't. And it's like, yes, well, obviously she is, because you specifically describe your non-white characters when they are not white. Like Dean, there's never any, you know, guess that Dean isn't black. Like, it's made very clear. So obviously then other people are white. So like I would have loved if she could have literally just been like, oh, I love this headcanon. Like, I wish I had done this. Moving forward, I would love to see Hermione played as black, which she was in Cursed Child. Like, that's literally all she could have said.
You know, I'm not very into BookTube or Book Twitter, but I did see a clip from that one artist's live stream. I mean, author's live stream. What's her name? I'm looking at the book right now. Bardugo, is that who it was?
Lee Bardugo, yeah.
She has Six of Crows, and someone said that one guy, Kaz, that I always see fan art of, and I really want to read it, but they a lot of people headcanon him as Muslim, I think, and she was like, well, I never, like, there's no religion, but you can absolutely, like, you know, I love that, and that's the right response. That's the correct response.
Not to be up Rick Riordan's ass, but that bitch, like, I don't know if you guys saw recently, he tweeted, someone was like, I avoid Twitter so I don't have to see the day where Rick Riordan gets canceled for something.
I saw that.
And like, he quote retweeted and was like, you know what? Like, I'm learning, someday I might be canceled, and that's okay. Like, I'm learning and growing. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think perfect people exist, but like, I think he's pretty close as a white man could be to a perfect person. Yeah. Like, both him and his wife.
There's a reason he hasn't been quote unquote canceled, because when people call him out on problematic things that he's done, he's fixed them.
Like, it's just like the situation with Jenna where she was like, you know, what she did was the right thing to do. I do think that it really was like watching a dog get kicked. Like, really, it was really hard to watch. But again, like, it wasn't, I thought it wasn't for like white people, and that's
exactly
completely true. But what she was saying about, you know, she doesn't want to, you know, have that negativity on the internet. She doesn't want people to think, you know, she's spreading that. So she was like, I'm going to step back. That was a very mature and good thing to do. And she has always been someone who listened and apologized. And that's why I think people were so emotional about it, because she has always, like Rick Riordan, if people call her out, she's been like, you know, fuck, like, this is bad, this is wrong, I'm sorry.
She made a video about a fish that died. Like,
literally,
you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Also, I found a lot of time, like, she was calling herself out before anyone else. Like, she was like, I made this video and it was fucked up, and like, I regret like, you know what I mean? Like,
owned up, and that was important. And like, on the other hand, when you see someone like Shane now make a video being like, I hate that person, I was doing it because I hated myself, it wasn't sincere, it was fake. You know, cancel culture is important in the sense of, like, someone like Shane Dawson should be stepping down from YouTube, and he should not be on the internet anymore, because he has continuously just made shitty content. Like,
the difference is that Jenna Marbles is stepping down from YouTube. She's done it a long time. She doesn't really need it anymore, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know what a bank account looks like, but I assume it's pretty good. Jenna stepping down from YouTube is saying, I did this. I'm sorry about it. And now I'm going to make room for people who aren't going to do that. It reminds me of what kind of Rick Riordan does, is he says, when something comes up, he says, I'm sorry I did it. I'm going to fix it. And I'm also going to do this other thing that's going to make room for other voices with Rick Riordan Presents. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's what activism is.
Yeah. He uses his platform to uplift voices, and it's good. It's important. And I didn't watch Shane's video, so I don't know. Like, I doubt he's stepping down from YouTube.
I highly doubt it.
They're not that kind of people. They'll never want to give up that platform that they have ever.
Yeah,
it's upsetting.
It's weird.
And neither will, and to tie it all in, neither will J.K. Rowling.
Nope.
She will never shut up about this.
Nope. Kind of off topic, but when that one, like, the Sun interviewed her ex-husband or whatever, I was like, can we please all be adults enough to recognize that was fucked up, but also still hold her accountable for being a TERF? Like, can we please not?
You can experience trauma and still be a good person. You know what, like,
or a bad person.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
What a hot take.
Your trauma does not excuse you being a horrible, shitty person.
Absolutely,
same with mental health. Be like, sorry, I'm a shit person. I'm depressed. It's like, no, like, what does that? You can still be kind to people and have depression.
Yeah, people were talking about that in terms of Shane's whole thing, and I guess especially to tie it into J.K. Rowling as well. But you know, so many people have been victims of sexual violence, have been bullied, have hated their bodies. Like, those are not excuses to be racist, to be transphobic. It's just so it's irrelevant. And that's another thing. Like, J.K. Rowling is never going to make, like, not that I would forgive her if she made an apology video.
No, I wouldn't.
But she's not gonna no one's making her do, because, like, she doesn't need, like, quote unquote, a PR team anymore, because she's like, like, she's one of the richest people in the world. She doesn't need, like, media coverage damage or whatever it's called, like
and two, it's not like, I would say most people in the world probably don't know this is going on.
Exactly.
Like, you kind of have to be in this sort of little sphere of social media to know that this is going on. And I would say it's probably predominantly people around our age, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger. But I feel like most people don't know that it's going on. So it's also, too, it's not forcing her to make this sort of a public apology. Because whether or not she realizes the harm it's done, it's not going to affect her.
I don't know a lot about the literary agency that she's with, but I did read that I think it was 4 or 5 people that were also with the same agency all, like, stepped down from it.
Whoa, good for them.
Yeah.
Like, her publisher, when the publisher was, like, a teeny tiny little publisher, and her books allowed them to grow into a larger publishing house. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if they'll let her publish anything, but they'll probably keep her on.
I think they will, just because, like, for example, like, Jordan Peterson is making books. Like, he's making books, and everyone, and more, like, with Jordan Peterson, I would argue more people know about him and his discourse because he is on the news, because he is, like,
mainstream,
a pseudo-philosophist.
There's people that publish Ben Shapiro's book. There's people that publish Donald Trump Jr.'s book. Like, there's always going to be room for those discourses and for those, you know, those ignorance and intolerance. That's not a word, but just, like, intolerance. There's going to be room in publishing for intolerance no matter what.
I've heard him talk about stuff that has nothing to do with trans stuff, and he's very I don't know how else to word it besides pseudo, like, intellect. Like, he really has this persona of being this smart guy, but he's a moron. Like, he's like Ben Shapiro. Like, these people, like, whatever kind of background they have, whether they actually went to university, whether they didn't, whether they're doctors or PhDs or whatever, that doesn't matter, because all those things mean is that they had enough money to go and do those things and achieve those goals. That has nothing to do with if they're actually smart.
100%.
Opportunity.
And he presents himself as this like pseudo intellect, like he's like this intellect, but he's not. Like I watched this like philosophy debate he had with this other like kind of, I think, right wing kind of philosopher, but the guy like fucking destroyed him because he was like, you didn't even read, like they were debating about communism and shit like that and capitalism, and he kept using these words and he was like, but what is, and the other guy was kind of like, what do you even mean? Like, you're not even saying anything, like you can't even define the word that you're using. He's created like terms to describe people like us, I guess, and shit like that, and but like the guy was like, but what do you even mean? Because what you're saying is contradictory. And I think that they were, because they were talking about communism, you know, they were obviously, you would, if you were going to a debate about communism, you would read Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto or other kind of communist texts, but he didn't.
Works
like,
on communism.
Didn't read it, and he admitted that, and he was like, I didn't read it. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. And he's like he's an idiot. Like he doesn't even read the shit he's arguing.
Are you supposed to argue for something when you don't know what the counter argument is going to be?
Or the argument itself.
Literally, yeah.
Like he was debating on communism and didn't even know communism. Did you see Nick Lang tweet about it after? He's one of the founding people of StarKid, Carter.
Yeah, didn't he tweet something like just about how like StarKid stands with trans people?
He like did like this really, it was a nice tweet. He's like, I hope you know, like I'm still learning. I'm gonna make mistakes, but like I'm here to help and take criticism. And someone like tweeted, they're like, hey, just so you know, I found one of the characters from Black Friday to be a little anti-Semitic, and he's like, thank you for letting me know. Like we didn't even think that would be sort of how we'd come across, and like was very good about the criticism. But yeah, no, he tweeted like, hey, we support you guys. We're here for you guys. Yeah. Like this is bullshit. StarKid wrote Harry Potter. Wow. But yeah, I just saw that and thought that was really nice. And I'm like, because so many people that I know that like Harry Potter got into StarKid because of because of it. And then also, I don't know if you saw Robert. He played Professor Hitchens, Carter. He's been tearing her a new one every other day, and I'm obsessed with it. And he also came out as bi, which I was like, good for you, bitch.
Welcome.
Hello, Robert, if you're listening, we love you.
Excuse me, Robert Bannion, I really love you.
Every day, like anytime she tweets something, he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you fucking doing this? It's fucking bullshit. I'm like, Robert, I love you. We stand with this energy. This is good energy.
Let's give yourself a shout out. Where should people follow you?
Twitter, Soroxis, SORROS. And all my other links are on that account too. So
I'll link it.
I'm on Titter, Meggie Cryptid. And then I'm also on Goodreads.
I found it recently.
I don't know if people still use that.
Goodreads is owned by Amazon.
Oh
no!
I know.
What don't they?
I found it's still in beta mode, but I found an alternative that's like owned by Black women.
Oh, is it? I thought I saw something about the story. Yeah, I like that. I'm probably gonna switch over.
And they have a feature. They have a feature where you can import all your Goodreads information. So I think I might switch to Storygraph.
Geniuses.
Yeah, here we go. Let's all the homies get on Storygraph.
It's still in beta mode.
Once it's not in beta, let's go.
But they have a Twitter account where they update. So
that's good.
Get on Storygraph.
I don't really use like my Goodreads account that much anyway, so like if it's in beta, like that's totally fine. Like with me.
Honestly, I haven't really been reading.
Yeah.
Bye everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Harry Potter ASMR video. Please subscribe.
Thank you for listening.
Thumbs up.
Like and subscribe.
Follow me on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitch.
F in the chat for trans rights.
Respects.
Streams out every Friday.